Lot 249 by Arthur Conan Doyle, adapted for radio by Julia Warren, with Carl Bangston, Jonathan Brandt, William Foreman, Simon Gibbons, Camden Van Leeuwen, Clive Marlowe, River Phoenix, and Arnold Schmidt.
Come down! Bellingham's ill!
I think that with your nervous system you should take up some less morbid study.
Oh, I am not nervous as a rule, and I haven't rapped mummies before.
You fainted last time.
Ah, yes, so I did. Well, I must have a nerve tonic or a course of electricity. You are not going, Lee?
I'll do whatever you wish, Ned.
Then I'll come down with you and have a shakedown on your sofa. Good night, Smith. I'm so sorry to have disturbed you with my foolishness.
We shook hands, and as I stumbled upstairs back to my rooms, I heard a key turn in a door, and the steps of my two new acquaintances as they descended to the lower floor.
In this strange way began the acquaintance between Edward Bellingham and Abercrombie Smith, an acquaintance which the latter, at least, had no desire to push forward.
Bellingham, however, appeared to have taken a fancy to his rough-spoken neighbour, and had made his advances in such a way that he could hardly be repulsed without absolute brutality. Twice he called to thank Smith for his assistance, and many times afterwards he looked in with books, papers, and such other civilities as two bachelor neighbours can offer each other. He was, as Smith soon found, a man of wide reading, with catholic tastes and an extraordinary memory. His manner, too, was so pleasing and suave that one came, after a time, to overlook his repellent appearance. For a jaded and wearied man he was no unpleasant companion, and Smith found himself after a time looking forward to his visits, and even returning them. Clever as he undoubtedly was, however, the medical student seemed to detect a dash of insanity in the man. He broke out at times into a high, inflated style of talk, which was in contrast with the simplicity of his life.
Oh, indeed, dearie me. Ah, well, time for a quick pipe, I suppose. Oh.
Oh, I hope I haven't disturbed you, but I felt I should offer you these volumes by way of thanks for the other night.
Oh, there really is no need, I assure you.
Oh, but I should feel the better for it. I thought they might be of interest.
Indeed they are. I thank you. Won't you come in?
If you are sure. I wouldn't like to distract your mind from your work.
Oh, it's time for a breather, I think. Whiskey?
It's a wonderful thing to feel that one can command powers of good and evil, a ministering angel or a demon of vengeance.
Indeed. For myself, I would feel it a wonderful thing if I could command the weather. But we can all dream.
Oh, the weather? But that is something quite else altogether. Now, I was reading Socrates the other day, and you know what he says on the perception of good versus evil. Lee is a good fellow, an honest fellow, but he is without strength or ambition. He would not make a fit partner for a man with a great enterprise.
Oh, well, he could probably do with a good night's sleep and fresh air. He looks a trifle peaky at the best of times.
He would not make a fit partner for me.
Indeed. And fresh air might do you some good, too. Get the circulation going properly. Cooped up too much indoors has been shown to have a deleterious effect on the nerves, you know.
Whatever do you mean?
Well, and mind, I have spoken to you about it before. I have observed you have a habit of talking to yourself, often late into the night. Even when you fancy yourself to be whispering, the night is so quiet, it remains very audible.
My dear fellow, what do you mean? I do nothing of the kind, I tell you. Never uttered a sound.
Well, if it wasn't you, who was it? For on each occasion it has come quite clearly from your room and...
Nonsense! You're imagining it, I tell you.
Had Abercrombie Smith had any doubt as to his own ears, he had not to go far to find corroboration. Tom Styles, the manservant who had attended to the wants of the lodgers in the turret for a longer time than any man's memory could carry him, was sorely put to it over the same matter.
If you please, sir.
Yes, Styles?
Do you think Mr. Bellingham is all right, sir?
All right, Styles?
Yes, sir. Right in his head, sir.
Why should he not be then?
Well, I don't know, sir. His habits has changed of late. He's not the same man he used to be, though I make free to say he was never quite one of my gentlemen like Mr. Hasty or yourself, sir. He's took to talking to himself something awful. I wonder it don't disturb you. I don't know what to make of him, sir.
I don't know what business it is of yours, Styles.
Well, I takes an interest, Mr. Smith. It may be forward of me, but I can't help it. I feel sometimes as if I was mother and father to my young gentleman. It all falls on me when things go wrong and relations come. But, Mr. Bellingham, sir, I want to know what it is that walks about his room sometimes when he's out and when the door's locked on the outside.
You're talking nonsense, Styles.
Maybe so, sir, but I heard it more'n once with my own ears.
Rubbish, Styles.
Very good, sir. You'll ring the bell if you want me.
Abercrombie gave little heed to the gossip of the old manservant, but a small incident occurred a few days later which left an unpleasant effect upon his mind, and brought the words of Styles forcibly to his memory.
Now, as we drew closer, what had seemed like a hill revealed a set of porticos simply jutting out from the side, with a neat narrow door leading to the tomb within, daubed over time with a choice selection of graffiti. Some of them...
What was that?
Graffiti? Why, the slogans the ancients would scroll on walls.
No, not that. I heard the door open below. There's some fellow gone in or out of your room.
I surely locked it. I am almost positive that I locked it. No one could have opened it.
Why, I hear someone coming up the stairs now. Bellingham rushed out, hurried down the stairs, and I thought I caught the sound of whispering. A moment later, I heard his door shut. The key creaked in the lock, and Bellingham, with beads of moisture upon his pale face, re-entered the room.
It's all right. It was that fool of a dog. He had pushed the door open. I don't know how I came to forget to lock it.
I didn't know you kept a dog.
Yes, I haven't had him for long. I must get rid of him. He's a great nuisance.
He must be if you find it so hard to shut him up. I should have thought that shutting the door would have been enough without locking it.
He's of some value, you know, and it would be awkward to lose him.
I am a bit of a dog fancier myself. Perhaps you'll let me have a look at it?
Certainly, but I'm afraid it cannot be tonight. I have an appointment. Is that clock right? Then I am a quarter of an hour late already. You'll excuse me, I'm sure.
Still at it?
Barely.
Well, I won't keep you. 3 whiffs of baccy and I'm off.
Help yourself.
A dog? I didn't think Bellingham had a dog.
Nor has he. I know it for a fact. I also know it was no animal I heard on the stairs.
But if it were not, then what could it be? And what was it your man Style said again?
That something paces the room at times when Bellingham is absent.
Could it be a woman?
I rather think so. Of course, if that is the case.
It would mean disgrace and expulsion to Bellingham if it were discovered by the authorities.
Which would explain his anxiety and falsehoods. And yet, it seems impossible.
Hiding a woman. It does happen.
Yes, but not without being immediately discovered.
Oh, by the way, have you heard about Lon Norton?
What's that?
He's been attacked.
Attacked?
Yes, just as he was turning out the high street, and within 100 yards of the gate of Olds.
But who?
Ah, that's the rub. If you said what, you would be more grammatical. Norton swears that it was not human, and, indeed, from the scratches on his throat, I should be inclined to agree with him.
What then? Have we come down to spooks?
Well, no. I don't think that is quite the idea either. I am inclined to think that if any showman has lost a great ape lately, and the brute is in these parts, a jury would find a true bill against it. Norton passes that way every night, you know, about the same hour. There's a tree that hangs low over the path, the big elm from Rainey's garden. Norton thinks the thing dropped on him out of the tree. Anyhow, he was nearly strangled by 2 arms, which he says were as strong and as thin as steel bands. He saw nothing, only those beastly arms that tightened and tightened on him. He yelled his head nearly off, and a couple of chaps came running, and the thing went over the wall like a cat. It gave Norton a shake-up, I can tell you.
A garrotter, most likely.
Very possible, but he had long nails. By the way, your beautiful neighbour would be pleased if he heard about it. He had a grudge against Norton, and he's not a man, from what I know of him, to forget his little debts. But, hello, old chap. What have you got in your noddle?
Nothing.
You looked as if something I said had taken you on the raw. By the way, you have made the acquaintance of Master B since I looked in last, have you not? Young Monkhouse Lee told me something to that effect.
Yes, I know him slightly. He has been up here once or twice.
Well, you're big enough and ugly enough to take care of yourself. He's not what I should call exactly a healthy sort of Johnny, though no doubt he's very clever and all that. But you'll soon find out for yourself. Lee's all right. He's a very decent little fellow. Well, so long, old chap. I row Mullins for Vice-Chancellor's Potts on Wednesday week, so mind you come down in case I don't see you before.
For 10 days, the medical student confined himself so closely to his studies that he neither saw nor heard anything of either of the men beneath him. At the hours when Bellingham had been accustomed to visit him, he took care to sport his oak, and though he more than once heard a knocking at his outer door, he resolutely refused to answer it. One afternoon, however, he was descending the stairs when, just as he was passing it, Bellingham's door flew open, and young Monkhouse Lee came out with his eyes sparkling and a dark flush of anger upon his olive cheeks. Close at his heels followed Bellingham, his fat, unhealthy face all quivering with malignant passion.
You fool! You'll be sorry!
Very likely. Mind what I say. It's off. I won't hear of it.
You've promised anyhow!
Oh, I'll keep that. I won't speak. but I'd rather little Eva was in her grave. Once for all, it's off! She'll do what I say. We don't want to see you again.
It was the day of the sculling match between Hasty and Mullins, and a stream of men were making their way down to the banks of the river. A May sun was shining brightly, and the yellow path was barred with the black shadows of the tall elm trees. Black-clad tutors, prim officials, pale reading men, brown-faced, straw-hatted young athletes in white sweaters or many-coloured blazers, all were hurrying towards the blue winding river which curves through the Oxford meadows.
So the engagement is off then?
That's what it sounded like. I had no wish to hear more and hurried on, but still, I'm glad to think that the matter is at an end. That Bellingham, when he's in a fury, he's no pretty sight, I tell you.
Not fit company for an innocent girl like that. Yes, I'm on my way. I must go, but any idea what caused the quarrel in the first place?
None at all. I do wonder also what the promise was that he wanted Lee to keep. Go, Hasty, go! Hey!
Excuse me.
Oh, hello, Lee. Come to cheer them on?
I saw you there. I wanted to speak to you. If you could spare me a half hour? This cottage is mine. I share it with Harrington of King's. Come in, have a cup of tea.
I must be back presently. I'm hard on the grind at present, but I'll come in for a few minutes with pleasure. I wouldn't have come out, only Hasty is a friend of mine.
So he is of mine. Hasn't he a beautiful style? Mullins wasn't in it. But come into the cottage. It's a little den of a place, but it is pleasant to work in during the summer months.
I say, this is a jolly place you have here.
I like it. Try that chair and have a cigarette. Let me pour you out a cup of tea. It's so good of you to come in, for I know that your time is a good deal taken up. I wanted to say to you that, if I were you, I should change my rooms at once.
Eh?
Yes, it must seem very extraordinary, and the worst of it is that I cannot give my reasons, for I'm under a solemn promise, a very solemn promise. But I may go so far as to say that I don't think Bellingham is a very safe man to live near. I intend to camp out here as much as I can for a time.
Not safe? What do you mean?
Ah, that's what I mustn't say. But do take my advice, and move your rooms. We had a grand row today. You must have heard us, for you came down the stairs.
I saw that you had fallen out.
He's a horrible chap, Smith. That is the only word for him. I had my doubts about him ever since that night when he fainted. You remember, when you came down. I taxed him today, and he told me things that made my hair rise, and wanted me to stand in with him. I'm not straight-laced, but I am a clergyman's son, you know, and I think there are some things which are quite beyond the pale. I only thank God that I found him out before it was too late, for he was to have married into my family.
This is all very fine, Lee, but either you're saying a great deal too much or a great deal too little.
I give you a warning.
If there is real reason for warning, no promise can bind you. If I see a rascal about to blow a place up with dynamite, no pledge will stand in my way of preventing him.
Ah, but I cannot prevent him, and I can do nothing but warn you.
Without saying what you warned me against?
Against Bellingham.
Oh, but that is childish. Why should I fear him or any man?
I can't tell you. I can only entreat you to change your rooms. You are in danger where you are. I don't even say that Bellingham would wish to injure you, but it might happen, for he is a dangerous neighbour just now.
Oh, perhaps I know more than you think. Suppose I tell you that someone else shares Bellingham's rooms.
You know then?
A woman.
Oh, my lips are sealed. I must not speak.
Well, anyhow, it is not likely that I should allow myself to be frightened out of rooms which suit me very nicely. It would be a little too feeble for me to move out all my goods and chattels because you say that Bellingham might, in some unexplained way, do me an injury. I think that I'll just take my chance and stay where I am. And as I see that it's nearly 5 o'clock, I must ask you to excuse me. I bid you good day. There was one little indulgence which I always allowed myself, however closely my work might press upon me. Twice a week, on the Tuesday and the Friday, it was my invariable custom to walk over to Farlingford, the residence of Dr. Plumtree Patterson, situated about 1.5 miles out of Oxford. Peterson had been a close friend of my elder brother Francis, and as he was a bachelor, fairly well to do, with a good cellar and a better library. His house was a pleasant goal for a man who was in need of a brisk walk. Twice a week, then, I would swing out there along the dark country roads and spend a pleasant hour in Peterson's comfortable study, discussing, over a glass of old port, varsity, gossip and medicine. So it was that the day after my encounter with Monkhouse Lee, I shut up my books at 8:15 in preparation for my excursion. As I was leaving my room, however... Oh, there's that book Bellingham lent me. I'll return it on my way down. Hello? Bellingham? That's odd, the door's open. I'll just leave it with my card over here. The lamp was turned half down, but I could see the details of the room plainly enough. It was all much as I had seen it before. The frieze, the animal-headed gods, the hanging crocodile, and the table littered over with papers and dried leaves. The mummy case stood upright against the wall, but the mummy itself was missing. There was no sign of any second occupant of the room, and I felt, as I withdrew, that I had probably done Bellingham an injustice. Had he a guilty secret to preserve, he would hardly leave his door open so that all the world might enter. The spiraled stair was as black as pitch, and I was slowly making my way down its irregular steps when I was suddenly conscious that something had passed me in the darkness. There was a faint sound, a whiff of air, a light brushing past my elbow. Is that you, Styles? All was still behind me, and yet I could almost have sworn that I heard a footfall by my very side.
Is that you, Smith?
Oh, hello, Hasty.
For God's sake, come at once. Young Lee is drowned. The doctor is out. You'll do, but come along at once. There may be life in him.
Have you brandy?
No.
I'll bring some. There's a flask on my table. Good heavens!
Hello? Is that you, Smith? What is it? What ails you, man? It's life and death with Lee, you know.
The door.
Yes, it's open. What of it?
He's not there, but look. Look at the mummy.
Yes, I see the beastly thing, but come, we must go.
It wasn't there before. Not 5 minutes ago, I was in here. How did he get there?
Trick of the light? Surely. Now, come on. Hurry up! Let us do a sprint! It is well under 1 mile, and we should do it in 5 minutes.
Neck and neck they dashed through the darkness, and did not pull up until, panting and spent, they had reached the little cottage by the river. Young Lee, limp and dripping like a broken water plant, was stretched upon the sofa, the green scum of the river upon his black hair, and a fringe of white foam upon his leaden-hued lips. Beside him knelt his fellow student Harrington, endeavouring to chafe some warmth back into his rigid limbs.
I think there's life in him. Put your watch glass to his lips. Yes, there's dimming on it. You take one arm, Hasty. Now work it as I do, and we'll soon pull him round.
For 10 minutes they worked in silence, inflating and depressing the chest of the unconscious man. At the end of that time, a shiver ran through his body. His lips trembled, and he opened his eyes.
Oh!
Wake up, old chap. You frighten us quite enough.
Have some brandy. Take a sip from the flask.
What's up? I've been in the water. Oh, yes. I remember.
How did you fall in?
I didn't fall in. I was thrown in. I was standing by the bank, and something from behind me picked me up like a feather and hurled me in. I heard nothing, and I saw nothing, but I know what it was for all that.
And so do I.
You've learned, then? You remember the advice I gave you?
And I begin to think that I shall take it.
I don't know what the deuce you fellas are talking about, but I think if I were you, Harrington, I should get Lee to bed at once. It would be time enough to discuss the why and the wherefore when he is a little stronger. I think, Smith, you and I can leave him alone now. I am walking to college, and if you are coming in that direction, we can have a chat.
But it was little chat that they had upon their homeward path. Smith's mind was too full of the incidents of the evening. What had been a dim suspicion, a vague, fantastic conjecture, had suddenly taken form, and stood out in his mind as a grim fact, a thing not to be denied. And yet how monstrous it was, how unheard of, how entirely beyond the bounds of human experience. An impartial judge, or even the friend who walked by his side, would simply tell him that his eyes had deceived him, that the mummy had been there all the time, that young Lee had tumbled into the river as any other man tumbles into a river, and that blue pill was the best thing for a disordered liver. And yet he could swear that Bellingham was a murderer at heart, and that he wielded a weapon such as no man had ever used in all the grim history of crime.
And if you ask me, there's only so much study a brain can take in before something gives way. Of course, he'll have an aversion to water after this, but if I were him, I'd try it and see what a stiff country walk and some rowing might not do for him. Don't you agree? Well, I'm off to my bed, as you're not disposed to be sociable.
Eh? My apologies. I took a bigger shock than I thought.
Well, he's out of it now. I'll see you tomorrow.
Oh, aye, till tomorrow.
Abercrombie Smith crossed the quadrangle to his corner turret with a strong feeling of repulsion for his chambers and their associations. He would take Lee's advice and move his quarters as soon as possible, for how could a man study when his ear was ever straining for every murmur of a footstep in the room below? He observed as he crossed over the lawn that the light was still shining in Bellingham's window, and as he passed up the staircase...
Good evening. Won't you come in?
No!
No? You are busy as ever. I wanted to ask you about Lee. I was sorry to hear that something was amiss with him.
You'll be sorrier still to hear that Monkhouse Lee's doing very well, and he is out of all danger. Your hellish tricks have not come up this time. Oh, you needn't try to brazen it out. I know all about it.
You are mad. What do you mean? Do you assert that I had anything to do with Lee's accident?
Yes, you and that bag of bones behind you. You worked it between you. I tell you what it is, Master B. They've given up burning folk like you, but we still keep a hangman. And by George, if any man in this college meets his death while you are here, I'll have you up. And if you don't swing for it, it won't be my fault.
You're a raving lunatic.
All right. You just remember what I say, for you'll find that I'll be better than my word. Harrington, come in, come in. Take a seat. Take a seat. How is the patient? Oh, aye. Anything in particular? Ah. Well, you've warned me off the fellow already, so you'll not be surprised to hear Lee warned me too, in much stronger terms. Indeed, I was passing by Bellingham's rooms when they were, in discussion. I would say most undoubtedly, but I have no proof. So would I. But then, so am I. So am I. I shall be moving my quarters as soon as I possibly can. And my own experiences. Oh, no fear of that. I shall be visiting Peterson, as I didn't get to him yesterday. A good walk and a friendly chat, which will be most welcome to my nerves. When is Coulthard leaving his rooms? That's enough for today. Hat, coat. Oh, it will be a blessing to be away, even for a few hours. Bellingham's door was shut as I passed. But glancing back when I was some distance from the turret, I saw his head at the window outlined against the lamplight, his face pressed apparently against the glass as he gazed out into the darkness. It was a blessing to be away from all contact with him, if but for a few hours. And I stepped out briskly and breathed the soft spring air into my lungs. In a matter of minutes I was...
Excuse me while I add some description here.
If you must. You do realize that this holds us up.
Action in colour. Now I must add the colour.
Very well, but be quick about it. I'm almost outside Old's as it is.
The half-moon lay in this west between two Gothic pinnacles, and threw upon the silvered street a dark tracery from the stonework above. There was a brisk breeze, and light, fleecy clouds drifted swiftly across the sky. Old's was on the very border of the town, and in 5 minutes Smith found himself beyond the houses and between the hedges of a May-scented Oxfordshire lane. It was a lonely and little frequented road which led to his friend's house. Early as it was, Smith did not meet a single soul upon his way. He walked briskly along until he came to the avenue gate, which opened into the long gravelled drive leading up to Farlingford. In front of him he could see the cosy red light of the windows glimmering through the foliage. He stood with his hand upon the iron latch of the swinging gate, and he glanced back at the road along which he had come. Something was coming swiftly down it.
What is it? What is that? Dear God, it moves so fast!